When it comes to your money, who should be the decider? You or some pointy-headed government insider? Government knows best? You know that's crap. It's as bad as when old white guys decide to rap. Okay, I was channeling my inner Menzoid. I'm Jerry Agar, in for Ezra Levant. Two of the most famous economists of the last century were John Maynard Keynes and Friedrich Hayek. In the film, The Fight of the Century, we see how it would have been had the two of them had a modern debate, perhaps on MTV or Much Music.
We are here today to consider the impact of government spending on our economy. We're fortunate to have two world-renowned economists to offer their testimony on the matter.
Here we are, peace out, great recession, thanks to me. As you see, we're not in a depression. Recovery, destiny, if you follow my lesson. Lord Keynes, here I come, line up for the procession.
We brought out the shovels and we're still in a ditch and still digging. Don't you think it's time for a switch from that hair of the dog? Friend, the party is over. The long run is here. It's time to get sober.
One of the creators of the film is Russell Roberts, a professor of economics and a research fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institute. Welcome.
Good to be with you.
So you think economists and you think rap. Is that how that came about?
Oh, sure. Isn't that a historical tradition that just needs another enhancement?
These two economists, I guess, would represent the polar opposites of how the government should or should not get involved in the economy?
Yeah, they disagreed about what caused recessions and depressions, and of course they disagreed about what to do about it afterward. Keynes was much more the interventionist, believed that borrowing money and spending it through the government could help relieve a recession or a depression. And Hayek was much more skeptical and felt that government was prone to make mistakes when it did that and often didn't help at all.
Let's take a look at another clip from the film. Millions of people have watched these things online. Here they are talking about whether or not government stimulus actually helps.
It's just like an engine that's stalled and gone dark. To bring it to life, we need a quick spark. Spending's the lifeblood that gets the flow going. Where it goes doesn't matter. Just get spending flowing.
You see slack in some sectors as a general glut, but some sectors are healthy, only some in a rut. So spending's not free, that's the heart of the matter. Too much is wasted as cronies get fatter. The economy's not a car, there's no engine to stall. No expert can fix it, there's no it at all. The economy's us, we don't need a mechanic. Put away the wrenches, the economy's organic.
So initially, I think for many, many years, Keynes was the winner from the standpoint that governments seemed to believe he was right. The government needed to be involved.
Well, the Great Depression ended, so a lot of people viewed that as proof that Keynes was right. Some people attribute it to New Deal spending, and then eventually economists decided it wasn't really significant enough to explain the recovery. And then they decided it must have been World War II that got us out of the Great Depression. But if you look at data, as we point out in the song, if you look at actual consumption, well-being during World War II, it was not a prosperous time. Prosperous time for the military, but not a prosperous time for average citizens. So there wasn't a lot of evidence, to my mind, that Keynesianism worked in the 30s and 40s, but a lot of people decided that it did. And it was the dominant view of economics until the 70s. When stagflation came along, simultaneous unemployment and inflation, people started to wonder, maybe the Keynesian model isn't true. Some alternatives came along, many of them out of the Chicago School, Rational Expectations and others. And by the early 1990s and into 2000, I'd say Keynes was really on the wane. But with the Great Recession, politicians were desperate for something to do, and spending money seemed like a good idea. And a lot of economists rallied to that cause, to my surprise. Having rejected it earlier as ineffective, a lot of people turned to Keynesian stimulus as the right way to get out of this mess.
So what is it? This suspicion of capitalism and basically just panic? We have to do something, we have to do something, and the government puts their hands up and says, we'll do something.
Yeah, politicians generally don't get rewarded for standing by. They want to claim an activist role. And of course, economists like to be part of that role. I view economists as a special interest. We have a vested interest in seeing the government active. I prefer to see the government less active.
What inspired this video in particular?
Well, John Popola and I, the filmmaker, teamed up and we wanted to do something. We originally thought we'd do the return of Keynes to the tune of Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees, but we decided we wanted to write our own music and write our own song, and crazy idea, but it turned out to be a great deal of fun. Unfortunately or not, might be the most useful thing I've done as an economist is to create a rap video. It's a little frightening, but it's not so bad.
Well, no, it shouldn't be. It may have been frightening as you went into it, but an astounding number of people have looked at this video. And if you get some people then watching and start listening, you may have a few people who actually think about some of these concepts, because I think a lot of what Friedrich Hayek is trying to teach people and what you're trying to teach people is sometimes counterintuitive.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. It really caught fire. The first one was called Fear the Boom and Bust. And the two of them combined have almost 6 million views now. My favorite comment that I see on YouTube is, who's this Hayek guy and why didn't we learn about him in school? Hayek deserves a hearing, and we're not the only people, of course, trying to encourage people to listen to Hayek. But fortunately, a lot of people are more interested in his work than were before.
Well, if it were up to me, and it isn't, but if it were up to me, I'd have kids in school reading The Road to Serfdom. But what is the answer to that question? Why aren't they learning about him in school?
Well, he's not the greatest writer of all time. Keynes was a much better stylist, and I think a much better salesperson. So I think that's part of the reason for his ascendance. And people like Hayek get to listen to every time the system appears to be in crisis. We're in one of those times now. And I think people are much more open to alternative viewpoints who wouldn't have been interested before. And that's one of the reasons he's much more popular. Part of it also is the general culture of the day. We have a top-down mentality we've had for decades, maybe a century in the United States and the Western world. The right way to fix things is to get a hold of them and solve them using a bunch of experts. Hayek was skeptical of experts. He understood the limits of reason. He understood that crowds could be wiser than any individual in the crowd. And that viewpoint is very difficult to sell politically, and it's not intuitive for a lot of people. So it's a subtler argument.
Well, and I can see where the idea of spending money appeals to politicians, because it isn't their money.
Yeah, a funny thing about that, spending other people's money is a lot more fun than spending your own.
Yeah, maybe that should be it. Well, exactly how much are you putting into this, Senator, Congressman, MP, whoever it is? Well, the videos are fun, and I appreciate you doing it, and thank you for your time here today.
It was my pleasure. Enjoy.